Hello, darlings. Welcome to Narc Free Formula. My name's Freedom. Thank you for joining me. It's a late one tonight, so it'll probably be a brief one. I wanted to talk tonight about narcissistic rage, the Narc Rage, and why the narc will always destroy the thing they love. Before I start, though, please remember, if you're liking my videos, please remember to like them, subscribe to the channel, and if you would like to help me grow the channel, please share the video widely and don't forget to comment. All right, so I've got some notes. So yeah, look, Narc Rage. Narc Rage is different from normal anger. You know, we all feel anger. That's, you know, part of being human. Narc Rage is that intense anger that kind of comes out of nowhere. It borderlines on aggression or outright violence. Often they use passive aggressive, you know, and the sarcasm and, you know, silence and those kind of tools as well. But because of their low self-esteem, narcs are really sensitive to narcissistic injury. And anyone who has injured a narc knows what narc injury is and knows what narc rage is. So they're prone to intense outbursts or volatile attacks, whether verbal or physical. And it can come that quickly. You know, you might have, I don't know, questioned their authority. You might have looked at them the wrong way. You might have just, you know, just done something that made them feel slightly out of control. I mean, strange things affect them. I remember, for example, being at a Chinese food restaurant when we were getting married. We just had a, you know, small wedding or whatever. But afterwards, we went to a Chinese food restaurant, and I ordered when we were doing the ordering, I ordered steak and vegetables dish, cashew nut or something. I don't know what it was, and he flared up. He raged about that. It was only brief because obviously, hey, we were actually on our wedding day. And he said something like, you know, or how the fuck are we all going to eat steak or something? So obviously he didn't understand because he hadn't been to a Chinese food restaurant, you know, and that kind of not being in control made him overreact. And as I said, have this narcissistic rage. Quite surreal. Anyhow, so it is also differentiated from normal anger by the fact that it is unreasonable. So like that, for example, disproportionate. And once again, like that, cuttingly aggressive or hostile. You know, no reason at all to yell at anyone ever about, you know, ordering food in a restaurant, let alone on your wedding day. But, you know, that's what narc injury is all about. So basically, if they don't get what they want, if they feel they're being criticized, if they feel they're not the center of attention, you know, often narcs will rage if, you know, you have people come around to the house, you know, if there's lots of happiness and joy going on and they're not in the middle of it. If it's not revolving around them, that's usually when you get the passive aggressive stuff. So the silent treatment, you know, because they don't usually like to go off when other people are around. So also when they get caught out, that's a good one. When they get caught out, so if you catch them doing anything, one of their immediate responses is to rage, you know, because how dare you criticize them? When you're asking them to hold themselves accountable for their actions. So, you know, normal people know when they've hurt another person or know when they've done something, you know, wrong by another person. Normal people will hold themselves accountable. I shouldn't say normal, non-disordered people will hold themselves accountable. You know, will actually apologize for their behavior and try not to do it again. Whereas the narcissist doesn't like having their attention drawn to their behavior. They don't want to be held accountable. They don't want anyone telling them anything about their behavior, because you know, if they were to look at themselves, if they had any kind of introspection, as I said, they're all or nothing, you know. So they're either, in their mind, they're rather grandiose. They see themselves as being special and entitled to do what they want, however, whenever, whatever. So they kind of go from that extreme to feeling miserable and worthless and, you know, pathetic and useless. So there's, you know, they're very extreme in nature, which is why they never self-reflect, ever, about anything. And they don't like it if you try and make them self-reflect. If their ego suffers a blow, you know, leaving the narcissist is one of the biggest blows to their ego that they're ever going to cop. I mean, that creates a narc injury. And as the one who has left the narcissist, you will cop some, you know, narc abuse and narc rage over the, you know, the following weeks, years, months, sorry, weeks, months, years, decades, you know, because they're narc injured, you know. They're like I don't know, they're just like big babies, really. Okay, so when they're reminded of the fact that they're perpetrating a con and a charade, that makes them really angry, because, you know, they project. So they project all of that stuff, all of those things about them and their personality and what they're actually doing. They actually project that onto you. So, you know, they'll be telling everyone that you did this and you did that. In actual fact, what they're telling people is exactly what they did to you. But, you know, people who are outside of it do not know that. But the narcissist cannot allow themselves to actually admit the truth, ever. You know, they can't. They can't admit that they've done something wrong. So, you know, they just they have to keep on lying, and they don't like to be seen at all. So if you've seen them, you know, if you've actually unmasked them, they don't like that, and that will make them angry, and that's when you'll see that narc rage. And yeah, as I said, so when they feel out of control over anything, like being in a Chinese food restaurant and not understanding how the menu works. So they use their rage in a couple of different ways. The main thing is they use their rage as a coercive weapon, as a tool to get what they want, to basically scare their victims into behaving the way they want. So when the narcissist feels rejected or abandoned, they don't just forget about it. There's no just get over it with the narcissist. Because they don't process emotion like us non-disordered folk, and because of all of the stuff that I just mentioned, what they do is they project it all onto you. It's your fault that they feel like this. Not because they lied, they cheated, you know, they ran off with someone, you know, 2 weeks after you broke up, or, you know, whatever, but because you did something. You did this, you did that. And the attacks and the sheer force of the rage towards the victim, you know, can be quite scary, and actually makes the victims feel bullied and afraid. And so what do? They run and hide even more. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, the narc doesn't want to be abandoned. The narc has all these huge fears about being abandoned, and yet they terrorize the people that they say they love, to the point where those people have to get away from them. And then it all starts. You know, once you've tried to get away from them, then they have been narc injured. So then they, you know, it becomes, like I said, the self-fulfilling prophecy. They devalue you, they abuse you, you have to leave. They devalue, abuse you, you have to leave. On and on it goes until you finally leave for good. All right, so when you add narcissistic self-entitlement and their sense of possession over their partners or wives, husbands, whatever, this kind of narcissistic rage can actually be dangerous, because they, they really do see you as being their possession. So stalking is quite common with the narcissist, and harassment, quite common. Once again, they have this sense of entitlement. They have this, this pathological envy, and they blame you for how they feel. They blame you for the state of the situation in general. Even though, I mean, for example, my ex and I have been separated for 2 years. His current life is his responsibility. But if you ask him, his current life is my fault. Everything that's going wrong is all because of me, which is interesting because in the last 2 years, I've created a life for myself and I take full responsibility for that. So, that just goes to show how a non-disordered person lives and how a narcissist thinks, They blame everyone for their problems. They take no responsibility and no accountability. All right, so there's 4 things that can happen that make it, like I said, quite dangerous. So there's the stalking and harassment, but there's also what I call the Jekyll and Hyde hoovering. So it's devaluation and then hoovering. So what happens is, if you, for example, have escaped the narcissist, they don't like that. But they still see you as being their possession, and they still want to get fuel from you. So they alternate between being, devaluing, so being abusive and hostile and raging at you. They alternate that with then hoovering. I mean, as I said, I've been separated for 2 years, and I still, I cop all this abuse, all the time. But when I'm not copping abuse, I'm getting these random hoovering attempts. 6 months ago, sending a love song, 6 months ago, trying to sext me. I mean, that was 6 months ago. He's been with someone else for, 2 years minus 2 weeks. So that's what they do. They alternate between devaluation, so they hate you, they abuse you, they send you these, fucked up text messages, things that, no one wants to read. They go from that to then sending you love songs and wondering why you don't respond, and then getting angry that you don't respond, or that you don't respond the way they were hoping. In both those incidences, I didn't respond the way he was expecting, and he got mad. He got really mad. So yeah, Narc Rage, it's not a pretty sight. So yes, they'll still call. So even if they've got new supply, this is it, like even if they've got new supply, it doesn't mean that they're done with you. They still call or text to harass you, taunt you, stalk and debase you. They flaunt the new supply to try and provoke and upset you, to punish you, and this is what it is. It's about punishing you, and it's also about regaining a sense of power and control, because they've lost control because you left and they weren't expecting that. And the more you uphold your boundaries and the more you don't allow them to hoover you back, the more you don't, get sucked in by their bullshit, the more you don't respond the way they want, all of those things, that makes them feel out of control. And they don't like that. That makes them angry. So there's a lot of triangulation they'll do with a new supply, and they'll send you text messages, just to show you what's going on, and to let you know that, it's not them. They are lovable. There's nothing wrong with them, because look, they've got someone new. So therefore there's nothing wrong with them. Oh dear. All right, so smear campaigns and threats. So because exposure is the narc's greatest fear, like above everything, being exposed. So they can lose supply. Losing supply is one thing, but being exposed is probably their worst fear, because when people actually see them for what they are, when people know what they are, people aren't going to want to be around them. So they're going to lose their opportunities for fuel and supply, and that really scares them. So as we know, they don't like to be scared. When they're scared, they get angry. So yeah, they don't like people to see them. So if you've left the narc and you've exposed them, what they're going to do is they're going to have to reframe. It's called reframing the narrative. Basically, it means just changing the story. And usually the way they change the story is they basically go, well, I'm you and you are me. So what I mean by that is they're basically saying that you're the perpetrator, they're the victim. And that's the story that they go out and tell everyone. So they'll be telling the same bullshit story to anyone who'll listen, that they were a loving, good partner and that they were loyal and they did everything right and it wasn't good enough. And then, that she, I don't know, whatever, she cheated or she left or she were whatever. As I said, they'll just flip the script. So whatever they did to you is what they'll be telling everyone that you did to them. And they do that because, as I said, the number one thing is they're scared of being exposed. They just don't want people to realize what they are. And it's kind of really funny, actually, because I never really noticed just how true that was until recently when my ex found my YouTube channel and he started putting comments up about me saying this woman is the narcissist, which is fascinating because it proves my point. I also find it fascinating that how they're so grandiose in their thinking. So he's watched a couple of videos of me talking about narcissists. In anyone's reality, who would start a channel on narcissists if they were a narcissist? It's just not logical. But in the narcissistic mind, they're not thinking logically. All they're thinking about is reframing the narrative. So they're the good guy, you're the bad person, they're the victim, you're the perpetrator. They're the one that's been hard done by and you're the one that did it. But the scary thing is the more they tell other people that story and the more those people tell it back to them, it's almost like they believe it. It's almost like they convince themselves that it's true. And that is dangerous because, as I said, combine that with narcissistic temperament, their capacity to lose their shit and get violent really quickly, that makes them dangerous. So once again, at the end of the day, and I always go back to this, please, darlings, if you're with a narcissist, psychopath or sociopath, please realize these people are so disordered. They are so dangerous. And it's not going to end pretty, no matter how you try and play it. You might be thinking, if I do this and I do that. No, darlings, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter how you try and play it. There is no happy endings with these people. It's just more to the point is how many years do you want to waste, on basically just giving someone everything and still being abused, getting nothing in return, and then the second that you finally do manage to get away, as I said, then they'll go and tell everyone that it was you that did the abuse. So, you just can't win with them. You really can't. All right, darlings, I think that was all for tonight. As I said, it's pretty late, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.